I've seen a lot of people doing this recently on YouTube, and I think it's an amazing idea. So I've had my Goodreads account since 2000. I just checked. I started it in 2015. It's 2022. And when I started it, I went through, put a ton of books on my TBR. Some of them I've read, some of them I'm no longer interested in reading. This is something I've been needing to do for a while. I have 315 books in my TBR, and that doesn't even include some things I own physically that I haven't added onto my TBR. This is just books that I know for sure I want to read, and a lot of them I don't own. And so I want to go through, fix it, kind of condense it down a little bit and make sure that it's updated. I'm not very good with keeping up with my Goodreads. I only have 97 books read for the lifetime of my Goodreads account, and I've definitely read more. I'm really bad at logging books, especially before I started making YouTube videos. I wasn't keeping track as well as I should have. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. I have my computer right here, so if I'm looking forward a lot, that's why. Oh, that's a cute thumbnail. Pause for thumbnail. This is weird. Hi! My cat is going to be meowing in the background this entire video because she's needy today. Hello, my love. Come here. Okay. Anyway, thumbnail. Model, Vogue. Okay, we love it. Cute. So, anyway, let us get started. I have 16 pages on my TBR. This is crazy. 16 pages of books that I've been wanting to read. The first book on my TBR is Wonder by R.J. Palacio. I actually don't think I want to read this book anymore. So I know this book has always been really popular, but I've seen the movie and I have read all of the spoilers and all of the reviews, and I feel like I know what happens, so I don't feel like I need to read it. I'm so familiar with the content in this book that I just don't think it's something that I feel the need to read over, to take precedent over other things I want to read more. So I'm gonna be taking that off of my TBR. A lot of these are poetry collections, which I have read a lot of, but again, I'm really bad about logging. For example, Lullabies by Lang Liav. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, but I've read this, I own it, and I've read it, so I'm going to take that off. Same with The Anatomy of Being by Shinji Moon and After the Witch Hunt by Megan Foley. I've read both of these. They're poetry collections. I had a really big poetry phase in 2015 where I bought a lot of those Tumblr poetry collections and I read them. I actually really liked these. I think that I rated Lullabies a 3.5 star read. I really remember liking After the Witch Hunt. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. And then The Anatomy of Being, I know I gave 4 stars. I liked it a lot. I kind of want to reread them, but I'm not going to leave them in my TBR. I'm going to take them out. Another one I have is The City of Ember. I've read this book. I don't know why it's listed as unread. I read this book in grade school. I think I might have read it in 4th grade, maybe 5th grade. So I'm gonna take this one off. I think a lot of the books I have in here, I put them in because I wanted to reread them, but I'm just gonna take anything out that I have already read. Water for Elephants is another good example. I've read this book. I read it a long time ago when I was in middle school, I think, maybe early high school. One of these that I haven't read that I'm really surprised I haven't read is The Princess Bride by William Goldman. I've seen the movie 150 times. That's not an exaggeration. I watch the movie all the time, at least a few times a month. And I have been watching it that often since I was little. I love that movie. It's my favorite movie in the world. Actually, my favorite movie in the world is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but Princess Bride is absolutely up there. Let's see. What is this? This is a book called After the Woods, and it says, oh, I don't remember putting this book on here. Would you risk your life to save your best friend? Julia did. When a paroled predator attacked Liv in the woods, Julia fought back and got caught. Liv ran, leaving Julia in the woods for a terrifying 48 hours that she remembers only in flashbacks. 1 year later, Liv seems bent on self-destruction, starving herself, doing drugs, and hooking up with a violent new boyfriend. A dead girl turns up in those same woods, and Julia's memories resurface alongside clues unearthed by an ambitious reporter that link the girl to Julia's abductor. As the devastating truth becomes clear, Julia realizes that After the Woods was just the beginning. Okay. So this sounds like something I definitely would have probably liked in high school. I was really into like books that pushed the grain a little bit and were like a little almost disturbing, I would say. I don't think this is something that I, in my adult life, would want to read. It also doesn't look like it gets the greatest reviews, so I think I'm just gonna take it off of my TBR. And if I want to read it later, I guess I can, but yeah, as of right now, probably just gonna take her off of there. All right, the next book that I have on here is called Annexed by Sharon Dogar. And from the description, let's see. What was it like hiding in the annex with Anne Frank? To be with Anne every day while she wrote so passionately in her diary, to be in a secret world within a world at war, alive on the inside, everything dying on the outside. Peter Van Pels and his family have lost their country, their home, and their freedom, and now they're fighting desperately to remain alive. Look through Peter's eyes. He has a story to tell too. Are you listening? I love historical fiction. I don't know, I'm familiar with Anne Frank, obviously. I think you have to live under a rock not to be, but I don't know if this is based on like a real family that was with the Frank family while they were being hidden, or if it's more of a like imaginative retelling of what it would have been like to be with Anne Frank. But I am interested in reading this still. Like I said, I do really love historical fiction. It always is something I enjoy reading, so I am going to leave this on my TBR. I believe I also do own this book, so I should probably move it to my not read in my library shelf, but we'll save that for later. Okay, so the next one is Z, a novel of Zelda Fitzgerald by Therese Ann Fowler. I remember putting this book on here. I used to really enjoy reading autobiographical novels. I guess more so like, I guess autobiography is when somebody writes their own, right? So I used to really like reading those, and because of that, I thought that I would be really interested in like biographical fiction, which is what this book is. This is a story of Zelda Fitzgerald based on research of her. It's kind of like a fantasized version of her. And now, like, this just doesn't seem like something I would be interested in reading at this point in time. So I'm gonna take it off. I can always add it back later, like I said, but I don't think I added this in 2016 and I still haven't read it, and it's 2022. So I feel like this just isn't something I'm itching to pick up. So I'm gonna take it off of here. The Opposite of Loneliness, Essays and Stories. This doesn't sound like something that I would be interested in reading anymore either. So it's basically this girl, Marina Keegan. She was a Yale graduate and she was getting ready to have a play produced in New York, and she died a few days after she graduated. And these were essays that she had written that were published after she passed away. And I remember adding this to my Goodreads because someone, I can't remember who, but somebody that I followed on BookTube at the time was really advocating for how good this book was. I personally don't love reading essay collections anymore. I have to really, really want to read them. There are certain ones I will pick up, but for the most part, I really don't love them, so I do think I'm going to take this one off. Also, looking in the camera just reminded me, I dyed my hair back to brown. It's not red anymore, and I'm loving it. That is besides the point. So yeah, I am going to take this one off of my list. Well, maybe. Yes, please remove. Thank you. Okay, what else do we have? Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. I own this and I have not read it, so I'm gonna move it to my unread in my library folder, but I am going to keep it in my TBR. just because, like I said, I haven't read it. I would like to read it. This is one that, okay, so I used to be very into YA fantasy, and The Diviners is one that I was really interested in reading for a long time, and I just don't think I'm interested in reading it anymore. It's The Diviners by Libba Bray, and yeah, I was really excited about this, and now every time I think about reading it now, I don't really reach for it, and it just doesn't really seem to appeal to me, so I'm going to remove it from my list. Another one is The Grace Keepers by Kirsty Logan. I remember being really excited to read this book. It was getting a lot of attention on BookTube back in 2016, but I just reread the description, and I think that I thought this book was going to be sort of akin to The Night Circus, mainly because of the description talks about a girl who performs like circus acts. And now rereading the description, it doesn't sound like something that I'm interested in reading. And yeah, so I haven't thought about this book in years, so I'm just gonna go ahead and take it off of the shelf. I still haven't read Six of Crows. Can you believe that? I am the biggest fan of the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I love them. They're some of my favorite young adult fiction books I've ever read. And I was so excited to read Six of Crows. I own it. And is Crooked Kingdom the second one? No, wait. I don't know. Whatever the second one is as well, I own them both, the duology. And I haven't read either of them. I can't believe it. I need to get around to it. I put this on my TBR January 27th, 2016, and I still haven't read it. That's absolutely insane. Part of it was spoiled for me because I watched the Shadow and Bone show. I don't know how much of that embedded storyline actually occurs in the book, but I know it's a lot, or at least some, and I haven't read it yet. I really do need to. Let's see. This is called Our Souls at Night by Kent Haruf. A spare yet eloquent, bittersweet yet inspiring story of a man and a woman who in advanced age come together to wrestle with the events of their lives and their hope for the imminent future. It takes place in Colorado. Their brave adventures, their pleasures, and their difficulties are hugely involving and truly resonant, making Our Souls at Night the perfect final installment to this beloved writer's enduring contribution to American literature. Oh, so this was his last book. This does still sound like something I would really enjoy reading. It sounds like something I would have enjoyed reading then, and it sounds like it's something I would enjoy reading now. So I'm 100% gonna leave it on my TBR because I do still very desperately want to read this book. It sounds great. This book is called The Enchanted by Renee Denfield. I remember putting this on my TBR. I remember, again, it was very popular with people on BookTube, and especially with a lot of people that I am subscribed to and follow on the BookTube sphere. And it says, the Enchanted Place is an ancient stone prison viewed through the eyes of a death row inmate who finds escape in his books and in reimagining life around him, weaving a fantastical story of the people he observes and the world he inhabits. Fearful and reclusive, he senses what others cannot. Though bars confine him every minute of every day, he marries magical visions of golden horses running beneath the prison, heat flowing like molten metal from their backs with the devastating violence of prison life. Two outsiders venture here, a fallen priest and the lady, an investigator who searches for buried information from prisoners' past that can save those soon to be executed. Digging into the background of a killer named York, she uncovers wrenching truths that challenge familiar notions of victim and criminal, innocence and guilt, honor and corruption, ultimately revealing shocking secrets of her own. Yeah, absolutely still want to read this. Definitely sounds like something I would enjoy. I really like books that kind of tie fantasy into, I don't know how to describe it, fantasy books that drive a narrative of questioning morality, and this kind of sounds like that's what this would do. It sounds like this book questions the morality and asks a lot of questions about our prison system, and specifically death row and what it's like to be an inmate on death row, and kind of get into their thought process. And that is definitely something that interests me, so I will be reading this book and leaving it on my TBR. Another book that I haven't read that I do own is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and I've heard amazing things about this book. I'm not going to bother reading the description just because it's a very well-known book, but it is another historical fiction, and I do own it, and I will absolutely be reading it because it's always something I've wanted to read. I have to be in the mood to read a historical fiction because they're usually quite heavy, and I haven't been in the mood for anything like that recently, but I absolutely will be reading it. I turned this lamp off because it was casting this weird like glow on my face. I don't know. I need to get a better lamp for over here. The next book I have on my list that I don't remember adding is Dreams Underfoot by Charles Dillint. It looks like this is a series. Welcome to the music clubs, the waterfront, the alleyways, where ancient myths and magic spill into the modern world. Come meet Jilly painting wonders in the rough city streets, and Geordie playing fiddle while he dreams of a ghost, and the angel of Grasso Street gathering the fae and the wild and the poor and the lost. Jemmons lives in abandoned cars, and Skells traverse the tunnels below, while mermaids swim in the gray harbor waters and fill the cold night with their song. Okay, so it looks like this is a short story collection. Love that. Oh, wait, no. Maybe this isn't a short story collection. It looks like it might be a series. Interesting. Okay, yeah, absolutely. This 100% sounds like something I would love to read, so I will in fact be reading it, and we're leaving it on my TBR. One book that I'm thinking of taking off of here is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. I've heard great things about this series, and I love fantasy, but I don't know if I want to read this book anymore. I watched the show, and like, the show was fine, but I didn't love it, and I don't know if I want to read them, so I think I might take it off. Yeah, I'm gonna remove it, and maybe I'll add it back on later if I change my mind. But I don't think I want to read it anymore. Next we have Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wein. W-E-I-N is her last name. Ooh, another historical fiction. Yep, absolutely keeping this on my TBR. I also have A Constellation of Vital Phenomena by Anthony Mara, and this is a debut novel. In the final days of December 2004, in a small rural village in Chechnya, 8-year-old Hava hides in the woods when her father is abducted by Russian forces. Oh, I own this book, actually. Fearing for her life, she flees with their neighbor Ahmed, a failed physician, to the bombed-out hospital where Sonia, the one remaining doctor, treats a steady stream of wounded rebels and refugees and mourns her missing sister. Over the course of 5 dramatic days, Ahmed and Sonia reach back into their past to unravel the intricate mystery of coincidence, betrayal, and forgiveness that unexpectedly binds them and decides their fate. Yes, I will absolutely be reading this. Sounds very up my alley. I own this book. I didn't recognize it because I own a different cover than the one that's displayed, but I do know for sure that I own it, so I will absolutely be reading that. Another book I haven't read yet that is on my TBR that I do really want to read is Bluets by Maggie Nelson. This has been on my TBR since February 3rd, 2016, and I still haven't gotten around to it. I also haven't read The Secret History by Donna Tartt. What is wrong with me? All of these popular books that I haven't read. There's also this book that has been on my TBR for a while. I own it. It's called The Coincidence of Coconut Cake by Amy E. Reichert, and I've been thinking of unhauling this book. I picked it up at a Goodwill, and it's like about a food critic who brings down, it's about a talented chef and the food critic who brings down her restaurant, and they like meet and they have mistaken, they mistake each other for someone else, it sounds like, and yeah, this just isn't something I'm interested in reading. So I'm going to unhaul it and also take it out of my TBR. It's just not up my alley. I don't know why I ever picked it up. Goodwill has at least where I'm from in Florida, in New York, it's way more expensive at thrift stores, but in Jacksonville, most of the North Florida Goodwills, their paperbacks are $2 for $1. So I would pick up random books all the time thinking I'd get around to them, and then I never did. So another book I haven't read is Wink Poppy Midnight. This was really popular on BookTube back in 2016. I'm gonna leave this on my TBR. I do still want to read it. The Goldfinch is one that's on my TBR that I have read. I guess I just never logged it and never reviewed it. The Goldfinch is one of my favorite books of all time. I love the movie, I love the book. I don't know what it is about it. It's just that like dark academia, like atmospheric writing is just something I really enjoy reading. So I'm gonna take this off of my TBR, but only because I have read it. I don't know why it is still listed on here. This next one is called Cold City by Catherine McSporran. 2 weeks after his death, Susan McPherson sees her father on the street in Glasgow. Not long after, she takes an overdose and is committed to a psychiatric institution. There, she's given a cocktail of drugs and soon finds herself moving between the reality of hospital and an alternate city, permanently covered in snow and ice. In her new world, her gay brother Jamie is now married to Claire. The country is dominated by militant pagan groups, and Christian fundamentalism is on the rise, led by the charismatic preacher McLean. Susan is befriended by Raj, a mysterious man who creates paintings of wolves and Norse legends. As Susan's drawn to the struggles and relationships of this new parallel world, her grip on the first world loosens further. Can she resolve the crisis in the icebound city in order to return to reality? Interesting. Okay, it says for fans of Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go, and that's one of my favorite books ever. So I will be leaving this on my TBR, and I will absolutely be reading it. It sounds like something that I would enjoy. Another book I can't believe I haven't read is Catherine Valente's Radiance. She also wrote Deathless, and this has been on my TBR for years. I can't believe I haven't read it yet. I will absolutely be getting around to it at some point. Who knows when. Chameleon on a Kaleidoscope is a book that I am no longer interested in reading. It's by the same author that wrote Diary of an Oxygen Thief. I enjoyed Diary of an Oxygen Thief, but I enjoyed it when I read it in like 2015 or 2016, whenever I read it. I don't know that it's something I want to read anymore. Like, I wouldn't pick it up now and be like, yeah, I'm gonna read this. And I kind of feel that way about Chameleon on a Kaleidoscope. It kind of feels, the writing I remember feels like a little pretentious, and I liked it as a teenager, but I think that I would dissect it too much and wouldn't enjoy it now. So I'm gonna take it off of my list, and maybe if you guys have a different opinion or you've read this book, tell me and maybe I'll add it back, but I'm thinking I'm just gonna remove it, be done with it. Dirty Pretty Things by Michael Faudet. I've read this book. I loved it. It was a poetry collection. I enjoyed it. I don't know why it's still in my TBR. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. I've read this book. I loved this book. Don't know why it's on my TBR. I've read it. This book is called How the Blessed Live by Susanna M. Smith. I remember adding this to my Goodreads because someone, I can't remember who it was, but I remember like I had never heard of this book before, and the person who was reviewing this book just gave it so much acclaim. It doesn't have very many reviews on Goodreads. It only has 82 ratings and 13 reviews, so it's like a pretty not well-known book, but the reason that it sounded interesting to me was because of the description. It says, on an isolated island in Lake Ontario live twins Lucy and Levi and their father Daniel. When Daniel desperately mourns for his dead wife, Levi and Lucy grow up ever more entwined in their enchanted childhood of fairy tales and rhymes. But when a fissure in the fragile cocoon of the family explodes into a chasm, each of the three is hurled into a different direction. Soon there emerges a geographical triangle: Vancouver, Montreal, the island, that also maps out the terrain of love and the territory of family. Part Egyptian myth, this is the part that made me want to read this book. Part Egyptian myth, part Alice in Wonderland. How the Blessed Live is an ethereally quiet, unexpected debut from a novelist to be watched. So yeah, the Egyptian myth thing really got me, and so I will absolutely be reading this book. It looks very interesting, and I would love to still read it, so I will absolutely be reading it. The next book on my TBR is called The Young Elites by Marie Lu. Based on the cover, I'm just gonna assume that this is a YA book, and I don't really love reading YA anymore. I put this on my TBR in 2016 when I was still reading YA. I have a lot of like YA books I own that I either would rather reread or some that I haven't had a chance to finish reading. And I think I'd rather kind of prioritize those and then move into like adult fantasy series rather than like read too many new YA series. There are some that are exceptions, like the ones that trend on TikToks I'm very interested in. I've never read ACOTAR, but I do think I want to read them just because I want to know what the hype is about and I want to be able to participate in the conversations. But this one, I just don't think that I have any interest in reading it, so I'm taking it off my list. The next book that's on my TBR is The A to Z of You and Me by James Hanna. I read the description and it sort of just sounds like a typical contemporary book, and I don't love reading those. I love reading, if I'm gonna read a contemporary per se, I love reading like contemporaries that have a theme of something I've related to in my life. So like maybe contemporaries that focus on not the healthiest relationships, or just, you know, contemporaries that really like push a narrative. And the stereotypical just like, oh, happy ending, like tale of love, I don't love reading those. Like, I just don't. I wish I did. I know a lot of people do enjoy them. I love like depressed woman moving books where it's just like no plot and it's just women going about their life and explain, like it's just the way that their life is described is just beautiful and poetic, but nothing really happens. Those, I love books like that. And I don't really see myself reading this book, so I will be removing it from my list, even though it gets great reviews, and I have heard great things about this book. I don't think it's anything that I will be reaching for anytime soon. I started at page 16 of my Goodreads TBR. We're only on page 12 now, but there's only 15 pages now, so we got rid of a whole page, which is good. I'm doing quite well. Girl Interrupted is another one that's on here. I've read this. I've read it multiple times by Susanna Kaysen. I read it in school and then I read it again later. Loved it. Taking it off the list. Don't know why it's still on here. I've read it several times. Bittersweet Love is another Michael Fade book that I own and have read. It's a poetry collection. I loved it. Taking it off my TBR. I don't know why I have so many books on here that I've read. Like I said, at one time I was really bad with keeping up with my TBR. All right, I think I'm gonna end this video here. I've been filming at this point for like 45 minutes and I don't want this video to get too long. We did make a decent dent. I got through like 4 or 5 pages. I'll probably do another one of these in the future just because I do still need to go through and clear out the rest of the TBR. So let me know if you like this type of video, and I'd totally be down to do it again. I'm probably gonna do it again even if you didn't like it, just to keep myself motivated. Yeah, but that being said, talk soon, and yeah, I will see you all later. Goodbye.